Here we are, guys. Welcome to the DeFi Recode episode 8. We've got Stephen Dodge here and Ian Major from BYOD Bitcoin for your data. And we're going to have a really fun one today. This is from the Bitcoin conference that we were all at down in Miami. I had a really fun time stopping by their booth. I thought it was really interesting. It stood out to me versus all the just payment processors that were there. This was very unique and very interesting. So we got together via email and decided to do a quick podcast here so everybody could see what's going on with BYOD. And I will let Stephen and Ian introduce themselves a little bit and how they got into this.
Thank you, thank you. So I appreciate you having us. We're still recovering for our Miami week, but good to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a good time.
Yes, week might have been too long, but yeah, we're the founders of BYOD. It is a decentralized data platform that enables you as a consumer to aggregate all of your online digital data and then essentially sell it in exchange for Bitcoin to willing buyers. Anyway, it was kind of birthed out of another kind of startup that we had been working on for a year, and we realized, hey, this is pretty cool, pretty unique. What a why not take a stab at it? And so we started building, and then we obviously met at the Bitcoin conference, and I will let Ian introduce himself.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Ian Major. My background, I worked as a business consultant for about 7.5 years, helping largely, kind of consumer-facing organizations test and analyze the impact of new business initiatives. So think bringing the scientific method to the business world. So I'm bringing a lot of kind of data analytics, as well as this sort of business side of marketing to the table and focusing a lot on data strategy. So how can we, to Stephen's point, enable individuals to most effectively monetize their data? Like, what does that data have to look like to best suit the needs of kind of would-be buyers? So that'll be a big kind of part of my focus, as well as the sort of go-to-market and commercial sides as well. So very excited to be here. Thanks, Rand, for having us on.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for joining. So what got you guys, why Bitcoin? What got you guys into cryptocurrency first off?
It was actually probably what 2016. One of our, I mean, we had obviously heard about Bitcoin. Like I'm also in tech. Obviously in college days we had heard about it and started throwing some money in there, and then a little more aggressively in the kind of first, or I would say most recent bull run before this run. But yeah, we chose Bitcoin just because we know the network effects are extremely strong. It's obviously extremely secure, solid, been around for many years, and we want to be able to provide people something extremely attractive and rewarding, especially for the amount of data that they give up and produce every day. And we thought, a little bit of a play on words of like BYOB or BYOD, bring your own device or beer, but we just thought, Bitcoin for your data. So
Yeah,
that's how we landed on it.
I liked the BYOD. It clicked really well with me, and like I remembered it instantly when I got home and got your email. Like it clicked really well. So I like the marketing a lot. And like what really interested me is like how are people like buying data currently from like these providers like Facebook, for example, or Instagram or Google, and like what would drive them to purchase it from me directly? Like, are we getting to cut out a middleman here? Like, how all does this all work?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I would probably categorize like the buyers on the buy side of this kind of marketplace into two main categories. One might be your kind of traditional advertisers. So these could be businesses or entities, whatever, going on big platforms, whether it's Facebook, Google, and they're typically inputting, "Hey, I want to target this type of individual, who shares these traits, these interests that I believe." Could make them a good, would-be customer, right? Or have a higher likelihood of being a customer. That's kind of one category. The other category are maybe what we can call data brokers. And these are, uh, any variation of shadier kind of entities that buy and package up and repackage up and resell data for different purposes. And those purposes span a wide range of things. It could be research, it could be market, market entry analysis. Like there's a lot of different kind of use cases. But if we think of advertisers and data brokers as the main categories, you're asking a really good question, which is like why in the heck would they come to BYOD? And one of the things that I've been talking to a lot of my kind of former clients, who many of whom are kind of marketers for. I mean, these are big kind of consumer facing organizations. And there's really two key themes that come out. One is this sort of uncertainty of how data privacy, both regulations and individual sentiment towards it, are going to evolve over time. I don't think anyone's betting on Facebook failing to kind of keep up with those types of regulations, but there is still this kind of uncertainty and desire to maybe diversify how they connect with individuals, right? And the other piece is we very much believe that we're facilitating the creation of a novel data set. So when you think about you, the individual, and all the different web applications that you're interacting with, right? Like Facebook's not going to turn around and kind of partner with Google, who's going to turn around and partner with Amazon to create this kind of holistic cross-platform view of you, the individual. And so that's actually quite unique and is only possible in this sort of user-owned paradigm as opposed to a platform-owned paradigm. So those are probably two of the themes that we're hearing most clearly in terms of why would someone on the buy side want to come to a platform like this.
That actually makes a lot of sense. And like just to kind of hop into it, what is the process? How would somebody like myself as a user, how would it work? And what are you guys linking up? Because that is a good point of getting like a full view of somebody and not just a snippet from one platform there.
Yeah, no, I mean that's true. I mean the current, I would say scope of what we're really looking to gather and enable you to do, it's actually pretty interesting. You go to, everyone's I'm sure familiar with the Mark Zuckerberg photo of him, sitting in front of Congress. These these looking pretty sad. But social media and pretty much any platform, any tech-enabled platform now, due to GDPR and just data privacy rights, compliance, things of that nature. They had to make it extremely easy for you as a consumer and a user to be able to download or at least access, the data that they store and have on you. And so the ones we're particularly, going after, and most likely all of us have the most data, is going to be, Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, Twitter, so on and so forth. But those big social media platforms just have extremely detailed, clean, structured sets of data. You just literally go into all these platforms. You would, tap on your profile. It'll come down in like settings, account, all that good stuff. You'd go into there, and essentially you eventually find out like, hey, download your information or download your data, and it comes down in this nice structured either JSON or HTML file. And what we say is, okay, well, download that file in JSON. We want to probably choose certain things. We try to avoid any type of media at this point, just because don't really know if we have any, use case for that yet. But in terms of like what data you're downloading, there's ad interest, there's anything you've pretty much ever done, all your contact information, payments, interest, just groups, whatever. It's all there. And then you would just upload it into BYOD, just, kind of plop that file in there. We start encrypting it, but we analyze it a bit just because we know what data, we're looking for, what's valuable. And then essentially we would present you as the consumer, the ability to see, okay, hey, what are these data elements that they have on me? Almost imagine like a Tinder type experience. Maybe it's like, hey, this data element is accurate, this one's not, keep it, give it away. And then, hey, the other side, like this is actually data I'd be willing to lease and sell to a willing buyer. I'm willing to put it out there, and then buyers go on there, look for a set of data, geographic, demographic, interest, whatever, and they would submit bids. You would receive it saying, hey, Nike or Michael Kors, for example, wants to lease and access your data for 6 months, for $5 worth of sats or something, and you would have the opportunity to accept or decline. And there's variations of that type of experience, but we have future and forward-thinking services and features and functionality that we're going to build out. But as of right now, phase one, that is the scope and kind of the core of what we're enabling you as a consumer to do and a buyer to buy.
Very interesting. Something that just comes to mind, like right off the rip, is privacy. And like you said, being able to pick and choose what information is shown. And I mean, I don't think I get that ability with Facebook or Instagram or anywhere else, let alone I don't get a checker to monetize any of the information either. So that's really interesting. Can you speak on like the privacy or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, there's like, I think Ian, you probably say it best, but there's no no way that we'll ever be able to like tell Facebook obviously to stop using the data, that you've agreed to, when you sign up for these platforms, for example. There are services that are out there that, maybe let you see what other, what data these platforms have on you. But in terms of privacy, we're hoping, down the line in terms of, again, data compliancy, GDPR, all that good stuff, is that we will have a way, or rather a manner in which, the consumer can be the ultimate source of that data. Like, we'll be ahead of that curve. Like, we believe the future of, data rights, data compliancy will be like, I don't want the ability to just simply delete my data or download it. To your point, I want the future to be like, I want to be able to control what data is accessible, even for just a, social media platform experience, whatever that might be. So it's not so much privacy, I would say. I think it's just more over the, finally the ability to influence and have control over your data. Because no doubt there will be people that, won't want to use this service. They're going to use a VPN, or, never want to sell any of their data, and that's fine. But, a lot of people today understand, that their data is already being used. It's already being monetized. I just want to, get some of that. And I'll let you chime in, and I know you probably have a few thoughts on that as well. But
No, you hit it really well. I think, phase one really is this, hey, it's already happening. Like, why don't we try and flip the economics to where I, the individual owner of my data, can actually benefit, as opposed to, getting sort of none of that in the paradigm today. And then phase two is, Stephen outlines and points out, I think there's a lot of really interesting things we can do, including even, kind of fully decentralized data storage. Going back to that lofty sounding, piece I said earlier, with BYOD potentially being this kind of user-owned data layer of the modern web. You could envision a future state where, if things go kind of far enough along this spectrum, as we believe they will, in terms of anchoring data around the individual, you could one day imagine some of even these big platforms having to somehow, come in and compensate you, regardless of how and where and when they're using your data. But that's probably a ways off at this stage.
Absolutely, and I could see where it could benefit them in the future to like link in with a fuller photo of their customer, because you can pull in more data from different places, you know what I mean? And then on advertising side, you're going to get a fuller view of the person you're advertising to, being able to link in with all their Google search history and Facebook and Instagram and all the other services that you can kind of bring together. It really makes a lot of sense. What about for people like content creators like myself or others? I network with like a lot of larger content creators that are collecting a lot of data via like Discord groups and private paid stuff and all that stuff. I'm not necessarily doing that myself, but is there any way for people to supply that data and get paid, or is it going to just start out first as individuals to kind of kick it off?
yeah, no, I mean, I think, I would say probably two pieces here. But I think one, back to what Ian kind of stated, like, hey, we want to be that kind of base layer of data ownership, and we don't really want to, control too much what's built on top of that. But we would love for content creators, any business entity, whomever, to be able to just, again, kind of plug into this data layer and, either, benefit from it, or contribute to it. And I think, another piece too is that, there's definitely other, iterations, I would say, or kind of versions that'll branch off from BYOD. And, like, people that are content creators, or, again, businesses, like, they can trade amongst themselves. I mean, it could very easily be a B2B market. Maybe a business or a brand is sitting on a bunch of data that is, typically, isolated and in a silo, and they want to try to monetize it. And they could trade it, exchange it, with other entities that are willing to buy it. As long as it's their data, we obviously want to facilitate, be a marketplace, but we're not going to be like a matchmaker or anything like that, because we can't see the data. So it's really, kind of exciting to see what we hope is what people will build on top of this, as the platform matures.
Yeah, I think the whole in kind of creator economy is, as you note, Rand, like a huge opportunity, and there's a lot of exciting stuff even happening, powered by, the Bitcoin Lightning Network. Like, there's Sphinx chat, so there's, I think, a lot of interesting things that, to Stephen's point, are going to be able to kind of fold on top. But at least out of the gate, we'll probably focus a little bit more so on the kind of, individual to business as the more common kind of connection.
Good question out of chat from Nunchi here. If the data is stored on IPFS, isn't my data fully visible to everyone and also unable to be taken down?
Yeah, so we were actually looking at IPFS initially, and so technically you could do it that way, but for an example, like many people have probably heard of storage. So when you upload any file or data to storage, for example, it'll encrypt that data. Then two, it'll scatter it across at least 80 nodes on the network, for example, right? And only you have that key. So it's not your keys, not your wallet, not your money you've heard before, but same concept, not your
Not
keys,
your
not your
data.
data. Exactly.
Mhm.
So you have that right. And so we have something similar to what you could kind of compare to like multi-sig or something, but you would essentially be giving a kind of shared key to a willing buyer to where, again, within like a smart contract, they would only have access to your data if you accept. Otherwise, no, it's not visible because this data is one, again, encrypted, scattered, across a network of nodes. And only once you've agreed to terms, both sides have agreed to terms, will that data be viewable, for the time, duration, and the specific data set that you have, agreed to offer up.
That's awesome and very interesting, and a great question coming in from chat. And I see you have an early access countdown here. It's run the clock is ticking. I love it. What's on the roadmap for you guys? What is the roadmap for the next couple months?
Yeah, so I mean, definitely trying to boost those numbers. We are going to probably cap it at a certain amount and then do the, launching Q3 is our plan. Right now we're really trying to work with Stacks. They've just got pretty much all the things we need in terms of libraries, capabilities, smart contracts, wallets, everything we would want for this platform. So really working closely with them. Can't disclose too much, but yeah, we've been talking with their team and linked up with them at the conference and whatnot. But just looking for developers to help us build some of these smart contracts out would be the main goal. But just finishing out the platform, the core platform, core capabilities. We're definitely moving, well along the way. And then we've got some stuff on the roadmap, as I might have mentioned, but like a browser extension, so you can capture more of your typical online and just digital behavior, ingest that data into your BYD profile, so you can offer it up if you like. There's other things we've been thinking of in terms of other features and the ability to kind of clean or understand like how much your data is worth from a consumer side, and then on the business side, like we're obviously going to try to build out as many tools and services that they can use so we can keep them on the platform, as we want to avoid any really possibility of the data being able to be taken off the BYD platform. um, really kind of this black box perspective, like I can access the data and tinker, move, manipulate it a bit, but I can't pull it down. um, and beyond that, it's really that's all I would say. It's on our roadmap. We're trying to be pretty focused in just building a solid V1 that can go live on Stacks, Q3.
I really love that. The Stacks booth was another interesting booth, so I'm glad you mentioned that. Like you guys together would be pretty cool. I think that you guys were the top two booths that I spoke to at the event that I had a lot of interest in. I feel like there were a lot of like payment processors and
Oh yeah.
just the common mining dream.
Exchanges, wallets. No.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff, and like the uniqueness of what you guys are doing really stood out, and like it makes sense to myself. Like you guys said earlier, like I use Facebook, I use Instagram, and all these. I Google things. They have my data. I might as well get paid for it in some way. So it's very unique, and it made a lot of sense to me. It kind of clicked as somebody who's already putting content out there. Like, let's find another way to monetize it, and I know there's plenty of other people, content creators, even viewers, that are looking to just monetize in any way they can and stack sats. So this is a really interesting project. Another question from Nunchi out of the chat that was interesting is, how do you prevent bad actors from uploading fake data?
Yeah, it's a good question. So again, the proprietary kind of parsing mechanism that we do have in place when you upload data, so say it's Facebook, for example. When you download that data, like it has your ID, your unique ID, like your user ID, and a bunch of other information. So initially upon uploading, obviously we are analyzing this. We don't like keep any of it or saving it. It's just really for moving data here, moving data there, and presenting it to you in a certain fashion. But if somebody did try to say upload, duplicate data, or like say try to impersonate you or something like that, or just monetize someone else's data, or just again fake bad data, ideally we would catch that. And then the other piece too is if they were putting up fake bad data, odds are that nobody would want to buy it. Hopefully this is a a market-based system here that we're creating, and if you're putting in bad data, it's not going to be very valuable, so nobody's going to want to buy it. But that's kind of our main two responses to that one that we've heard so far, and I'm sure there will be bad actors. There's going to be tough to ever avoid that, but we'll ideally put plugs and things in place to avoid that down the line. But I think the market will probably figure that out on its own.
You could almost
Yeah.
give users like a score factor for if their data was quality and like use of
It's
time on the platform, and all that stuff,
it's interesting. We're having a conversation with somebody who can think of it as sorry, and I just heard it's kind of like a like almost like a credit rating or something. It's like, again, just like, is this user's data extremely valuable, and how much of it, if it's bad, we can flag it and be like, okay, this is a bad actor.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so it'll be direct, like these data aggregators or whoever advertisers are going to be putting offers in on my data, and I'll be able to accept or deny whether I want to sell my data for that price. There'll be almost an open market for the data. Is
Yeah,
that how?
exactly. And we're, you could envision that more sort of manual, process for sure. Another thing, we're planning to enable is maybe you're just like, hey, look, it's happening anyway. Like for these certain elements, I'm willing to just kind of auto accept bids. And obviously there's a trade-off there. Maybe you would get a lower price if you're auto accepting, but it's just a little easier. So you'd kind of be able to flex whichever method you as an individual felt is best for your situation.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and like setting a market for it, because I've kind of worked with like Google AdSense a little bit and stuff like that. So I would assume you're kind of looking for a similar marketplace, like kind of back end like that, where people will be bidding and contracts will just kind of get accepted. There'll be like a natural market price, I guess, that comes out. And then how does the company profit off of that? Is there a small fee taken out of that exchange to continue the project, to continue BYOD?
Yeah,
So
that's
we would take
exactly
a
right.
commission. Yep. Right.
We'll take kind of as razor thin a sort of commission as we can off of whatever interactions are being facilitated on the network. And to your point, that's going to obviously go towards enriching the platform, providing more tools for individuals, broadening the set of data. Right, to your point earlier on the kind of creator economy as being this whole additional category, as well as ultimately being able to build out more robust, storage technology that would enable more flexibility with how you actually store your data and control it.
Yep.
That makes complete sense. And I guess you guys have any questions? Anything else you think we missed today? Anything we've missed? What about the team? How big is the team? And what are you guys looking for, if anything, to kind of be brought to the table if anybody out there is looking to join the team or is interested?
Yeah, so I mean, we're again based out of Virginia. We're about a team of 10. Again, this idea was kind of birthed out of our parent startup, Regular. I won't say parent necessarily, but it was birthed out of it just because quick pitch for Regular, but it's essentially kind of internet cookies for brick and mortar. We try to provide very hyper personalized experiences for customers when they walk into brick and mortar businesses, very similar to online. As you get with Amazon, you're getting greeted, curated experiences on these sites. And so we were like looking for ways to obviously provide a personalized experience as quickly as possible, and that needs data. And so we were like, okay, let's look here. And we ended up stumbling across this social media data and kind of found that, hey, this could be a platform in and of itself, and it's pretty compelling. So it was just kind of birthed out of that. And so we've kind of split our efforts over the last couple of months. Keep pushing Regular, but also building out BYOD. So we're gonna hopefully here in the next hopefully few months really have a lot of traction on one, and maybe the whole team can come on board.
That's really interesting, and I guess you already have your own data buyer basically in house that's ready and hungry to eat up some of this data.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. It's like even at the conference, we had from the buyer side, it's just as compelling, as much as we love enabling consumers, to really own and just, not even just sell their data. Again, this is a way to just aggregate and like use a tool that, easily lets you see and view this data. Cause I mean, as much as it's in like human readable format, when you download it, it's still a JSON file, it's in a zip file, it's large, but this should be a much consumer friendly way. But on the flip side, the business side, we had a lot of interest from people that were saying like, hey, have you thought about, transaction data? Have you thought about health data? All of a sudden we're like, well, yes, this is all extremely compelling and on the roadmap. So I think it's just going to become even more exciting as we, again, hopefully get more ideas and, this platform gets more robust just from the community itself over time.
That makes a lot of sense. Like, and I guess just speaking a little more to that on like the buyer side, you're seeing, I guess, with saying healthcare and things like that, there's a lot of what would an advertiser want with this data? Like, how could you guys, speaking to your other project, what would you use it for? Like, am I going to receive advertisements directly from selling my data, or is this strictly monetary and we won't give them access to advertise to me, or a little bit of both, or? Because I'm assuming they're using the data and then they want to advertise to me on the other side of this, whoever's using it.
Yeah, yeah, a good way to think about it. Like a very, very common use case on the buyer side would essentially be to more or less build a list, right, of individuals who meet certain criteria. I mean, that's ultimately what's happening on, whether it's Facebook, Google, et cetera. And so there's definitely, you know, like there's some execution that would likely happen as at the end of that sequence. And so, whether that's an email, whether that's whatever the case may be, I think you, the user, can also importantly specify like limits, frankly, right? Hey, I am willing to lease this data element up to X times per month, maybe, right? Because I don't want to just like be inundated with outreach from from different buyers. And no doubt we're gonna find more sort of guardrails to be put in that allow users to curate the experience that they have. But that would just be kind of an example of something that would probably help against you know being inundated, right? Like the point of this is really to better facilitate. It's not just to give users the ability to monetize their data. It's to hopefully facilitate better, more authentic uh, connections. Today, like I go on a platform and the platform is just squeezing ads and sneaking ads, and yeah, they're probably aligned to my interests, but the whole context in which that's happening is it creates for this very inauthentic experience, and actually businesses are sort of recognizing that. And so hopefully this would be a just much better matchmaking of like, here I am, the consumer. Yes, I'm interested in monetizing my data, but hopefully in a way that may also introduce me to products and services that would really add value to my life. So I think it's about hopefully building better connections between businesses and consumers in that way as well.
And I'd say to kind of piggyback off that, we are, we have like OAuth enabled on the platform to where we would ideally in the future, if this becomes powerful enough, is to kind of have some type of feedback loop back into these platforms as well. Because to our the earlier point, when you're buying impressions, like sure you can buy consumer data, like you can go out there and buy these either third party data sets or scrape, and it comes back pretty shoddy. But if we can have the ability to kind of programmatically, have this feedback loop into these platforms themselves, and hopefully you're getting a much better experience. Like, hey, which I'm sure we probably all had this experience or something similar, but I get an ad probably for the last 8 months on YouTube, and I consistently skip it after 5 seconds, and that there's like no way to say no. Like Twitter has ways to say like, hey, I don't like seeing this ad. I think Instagram does too. So like some of them have feedback loops, but it's like, do you have the incentive, one, to act on it, and two, if there are other ways to again just give this feedback loop a more clear, concise, just update in terms of like what I'm interested in and what I want to see. Because like as much as this data is accurate and very detailed, a lot of it's very relevant, but a lot of it is out of date. you know, if you go on Facebook, they just keep track of everything you've ever done. And it's like, okay, like maybe I was interested in soccer at one point, you know, because I played it in high school, but you know, I'm 42 now. I'm, you know, broke my knee. Like I'm interested in boating or something. You know, like I don't need this
Yeah,
anymore.
I clicked that button 20 years ago and forgot
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. So, but that's the problem. There's no feedback loop anymore. They just track and store everything. And like, you know, there's other methods too, which can mess up. You know, you have people come over and they get on your Wi-Fi and you look something up, or they look something up and they're tracking things by IP. And, you know, I'll get advertisements or stuff. And I'm like, all right, I know that they're sending me this because I know exactly whose friend that, you know, they're trying to target because they looked up something while they were over here. So yeah, there's like, you know, again, ways that we think in the future that ideally this can become the standard, because if you again focus things around the consumer and, you know, have them as that you know, anchor point, then, you know, I think a much better just human and digital experience is possible in the future for, you know, these platforms that exist now, but, you know, again, ideally ones that are building on top of BYOD and other blockchains of the future.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And Nunchi had a great question here. What made you guys go with stacks as opposed to other blockchains with smart contracts?
Yeah, so I mean, we weren't actually going with stacks initially. So we were trying to actually build this all out on storage, but they just didn't have. Now they've come a long way, and I still do think that they have superior, I would say, just decentralized network of pure data storage. Stacks just solves everything in terms of smart contracts with clarity. Stacks, the blockchain itself is pretty. I'd say pretty clean and has all the libraries we need. Just much simpler. JavaScript, Angular front end, but yeah, it was mostly just the kind of maturity and the documentation they had in terms of the full stack that we're trying to build. They just had more of what we needed. But I will say we're going to probably try to build some custom things here pretty soon, just because we're not entirely in love with the way the data is stored on Stack. So we'll be working pretty closely with them and trying to make this again as fully decentralized from every angle possible, so that, you know, we have true sovereign individuals.
I also think Stack, the way that Stack sort of builds, I don't even want to say on top because it's not a layer two solution on top of Bitcoin, but the way they sort of like the mining process of Stacks, not to get into too much detail in this discussion, but they essentially write their block headers on the Bitcoin blockchain. And so in a way, you're sort of settling using, you know, the Bitcoin blockchain. So there's other things like Sovereign, some folks may have heard of, which leverages the RSK sidechain. I just think Stacks is quite interesting in how it's sort of enabling DeFi on top of Bitcoin, quotes, because I think this is still a very nascent space. But to Stephen's point, the set of functionality that's kind of already here is really compelling and appealing, and it's a space that's moving so fast. And so our view is if we can sort of anchor onto what in our view is the most sort of immutable, stable, robust base settlement layer, you know, i.e. Bitcoin, and still have the richness of programmability and smart contracts on top, you know, that's kind of the ideal combination. But we'll see how it plays out.
It's
Yeah.
so interesting to me because I didn't even know before I went to the conference. Like I had heard a little bit about Stacks and Sovereign, and I didn't realize how far it had come. And you know, I am one to just play around with all the cryptocurrencies. I want to see it all. I want to play with everything. I want to kind of take all the information in I can and make my own thesis. So I'm not like a maximalist of any one chain or anything like that, but seeing everything that's coming to Bitcoin and being at that conference, it definitely, you start to think a little differently. Like, wow, some of this stuff is actually coming to Bitcoin. Like they're here, like talking to gentlemen, you're like yourself, and talking to Stacks and everybody there. It's becoming a reality, and knowing that you are on that base layer that is so secure and hasn't changed in forever is very, very interesting to see it all build out, and kind of like the race and blockchain that's going on.
Yeah, Stacks just like, again, we were just kind of, you know, me and my developers took a second look, and we were just, you know, kind of blown away with the progress they had made. And like we said, you know, hey, this stuff is coming. It's already here. It's being built. Like we said, Clarity smart contracts, you know, self-sovereign identity. I will say the big piece that we believe we're uniquely positioning, you know, kind of the next battlefront, which again, I commend everyone's efforts in this space, but I just don't think people take seriously enough, not even just the battle for like ownership of your data, but just decentralized data storage is such a critical thing because, you've seen these other platforms, um, gosh, what was it, Parler or whatever, whether you like them or not, AWS and, Apple, Google, whomever, they just, can turn you off just like that. And we're like, who is going to lead this battle forward? Like, it's great. We can try to have sound money, with Bitcoin, you can have a decentralized, web, Ethereum, whatever. But, we're really, I think, kind of not far behind, but I think people need to focus more on that battlefront of terms of data because everybody knows how important it is, obviously. And there just needs to be somebody that's gonna, take that battle head on. And I'm hoping that we can help lead that, as I think it's equally, if not more important than anything else.
Extremely interesting, and I've learned a lot. I definitely learned a lot at the conference talking to you guys. I've learned even more here without a bunch of noise in the background and being able to discuss with you gentlemen. Anything you think we've missed that we need to put out there?
Rand, I might just quickly comment on because some of your viewers may be familiar with other like concepts that kind of go towards this direction that we're heading. Something like BAT is often thrown out, so the basic attention token. Some of your viewers may be familiar with, and I figure it might be helpful just to kind of do some compare and contrast. I think BAT's done something very, very interesting. They've really attacked the digital ad use case. But as far as I can tell, they've built kind of a more closed system around that use case. And so to all the earlier discussion, we really envisioned BYOD being this kind of user-owned data layer of the modern web. And so, naturally spanning across these different use cases. What's also interesting is like if you read some of their documentation, I almost think they don't want their token to even be on exchanges. Like they're very, very conservative around, hey, this is not a currency, it's not a cryptocurrency, it's not anything, it's just a token, like, and I think that's probably to help deflect what might otherwise be, regulatory inquiry, which is understandable. But it is interesting that they kind of take that stance there. So I think those are some differences in relation to that. Another just quick example is Streamer. So Streamer, I think, is a little bit closer to this sort of data marketplace concept. For those who are familiar with the Swash app actually is kind of built on top of Streamer, and they use like the data token, I believe it is. But what we've observed is, with those types of approaches, it's tricky because you end up kind of spending a lot of time, obviously, building the product out. Then you also have to kind of spend some time promoting the token and ensuring liquidity and ensuring, that it can be transferred sufficiently, in and out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so that naturally does kind of take some focus off the sort of core product. So the discussion earlier about why Bitcoin, why do we want to build on Bitcoin? It's to kind of capitalize on what we believe is an already unstoppable network effect. So I wanted to throw that in just because we've often got questions about like, oh, so like BAT or so hopefully that helps.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and I'm actually really glad you explained that and made that comparison because I have and use the Brave browser. I don't
Yep.
really know though what data I'm giving them or what they're really doing with it. I don't know what
Yep.
they're taking from me or not, and I haven't earned enough that I've really ever checked on it. I just like the browser, to be honest. It works kind of well, but I don't know
Yep.
what they're doing with my data at all. And
Yep.
I don't think there's any real focus on that, to be honest, in my use at least,
Yep.
Um,
It's
I
definitely the opt-in, piece of like what, content do you want to interact with here on Brave. But again, like fully support their battle and effort. It's just to Ian's point. I think you want something that's like we only get this kind of battle and shot once. And I keep saying battle because I do think it is a battle. And you want something like so attractive and compelling for the everyday person, not people just, like us in this space that are knowledgeable, but like the everyday average person that is going to want to be like, hey, yeah, I'd be interested in this and, want something attractive enough to sign up, use it. And I think, Bitcoin is just, kind of has the lead and it's going to probably remain the leader in that. And that's what's going to attract people to kind of break this again, this paradigm that we're in terms of, these big tech platforms just sucking us dry for all our data.
So no BYOD token.
I mean, Probably not. No.
How are you? Are you like, are you guys just self-funded through the other business? Are you looking for investors or anything like that? Or because that's
Yeah.
normally why people do tokens, I would assume, is to raise capital. You guys are funded already, no need for capital raise or anything like that. Or
Yeah, I mean, we're self-funded, and again, like we could use some of the stuff, that was from, some of the code from regular was, could be applicable here. Um, but I mean, we're going to obviously try to work with, the community, obviously take any type of donations. Stacks has a, accelerator and grants arm as well that they give to projects, so we'll obviously be pursuing that. I think their next cohort starts fall or something like that. So we'll apply, and we're talking to them about the grants, and we will look to probably raise some funds, but the idea is to build this and then just let it free and be open source. Somebody's got to build it, but we're hoping we can get enough from the community. Um, but yeah, don't really plan on making our own token. Just enough to raise and run it, and then let the market do its thing.
makes a lot of sense, and I like what you said about like it allows you to actually focus on the product and not like liquidity and other tokens and the focus on Bitcoin and just going from there. I like it a lot. I really like it a lot. Anything else you think we missed? That was a good one. Anything else you think we missed?
No, I mean, if there's investors out there listening that want to throw some money, they can
Right.
they can help us accelerate this process for sure. We'll be happy to be working with Stacks, but I would just say early access sign up helps. Obviously, you just want to have people on board, but you know if they go to the site or it's right there, like you said, on the first fold of the site, they can sign up, and then the more we get, the better this obviously this marketplace will be in terms of the actual data sets available. We'll be able just to attract more sides. So
I'm putting the link in the chat right now for anybody who's watching live to go to the website, and you guys are able to then sign up to secure your spot. They also have a contact page there. I see Schlotman in the chat there asking how much money. That's actually a real question. So he will probably, he'll definitely reach out, hopefully, and privately ask you that. And anybody else watching as well can probably reach out through their contact page. I guess that's a great way to wrap it up. What's the best way for people to find out about you guys? The website, Twitter. What's the best way to keep in contact? Tell us where everybody needs to find you.
yeah, so they can find us on we'll be obviously on the main ones, Facebook, LinkedIn, all that stuff soon enough. We've been actually trying to keep a relatively low profile, so I would say just go to the website, or you can email us. Our emails are on there. But yeah, we'll be having the social profiles probably roll out soon, but just trying to fly under the radar as much as we can for a little bit longer.
Was the Bitcoin conference your like first event, kind of like letting the
Doing
public know about what's going on here?
Yeah, doing a good job about flying under the radar. But yeah, that was kind of the first. Ian and I were just like, YOLO. We're already going to the conference anyway, and we've started building this. Why not do it? So we got in contact with them, and yeah, that was the first kind of public viewing and litmus test of how people are gonna respond to this.
No, that's really awesome. And I mean, that's why I go to conventions like that. I mean, the networking is a huge part of it. The talks are completely worthless. You get all that information on YouTube, months beforehand. That stuff's completely outdated. And you walk around the trade floor and you look for what's the newest and innovative thing. There's going to be all the same junk that you see every year, but, booths like yourselves stand out, and that's what I go to find is what's the new and innovative and fun cutting edge stuff that's going on. And that's the best part of this, is being able to network and find new projects like yourselves to kind of makes your brain spin a little bit. It's not just like, oh, another PayPal wannabe. It's actually like, wow, this is very interesting.
Absolutely.
Couldn't agree more.
I appreciate the time, guys, and hopefully, as you get closer to release here, and early access and all that, I would love to have you on again and kind of discuss it further. And hopefully, the dude is here and Schlotman are racing to sign up on the website. I think we covered a lot. I think this should be a lot of really good information, and I will slap it up on the YouTube here by the end of the day or tomorrow, and get you guys the link as well. So
Awesome.
Sweet. Look forward to coming back.
I appreciate it, gentlemen. You guys have a wonderful rest of the day, and we'll talk again in the future.
Thanks for having us, Rand. Thanks, everyone.
We'll do. Thanks.
See you guys.
later.
Show you their website. We had a good talk at the conference, and that was just really interesting to me. I figured it would work for Schlotman for what you're doing. There's a lot of, I think about people like yourself and myself and all the data we're collecting, and if people could opt in to it, is there potentially a way that we can monetize some of the data we're collecting, Just like there's a commercial side of buyers, I feel like there could be commercial aggregator sellers as well, right? For some Bitcoin. Everybody wants a couple sats, couple extra sats in the bank account. Cut out the middleman, Facebook, Twitter, etc. Exactly. I'm getting my demographic together right now for another digital marketer that is sponsoring us directly. See, that's exactly what I've been doing, dude. And I get all that information together as well using like Twitch. There's like a Twitch stats website where you can like get all the information on your viewers, shared channels, and things like that. So it's really interesting. Anyway, demographic again. Sats on sats, stack them up. Cut out the middleman. Chesapeake is the way. I thought that was a really good interview. I had a really good time. Thank you for watching the YouTube videos. We really appreciate it. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, comment down below, help us out with the YouTube algorithms. And we're live 5 days a week on Twitch, 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. EST. Come check us out. Thanks for watching.